we're here going to focus on what is new with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, or ACC for short, as I'll refer to it here several times, mainly with regards to pre-construction and the construction phases. If you were with us last week, the first few minutes of this webinar will be very similar to last week, as I really want to just make sure that I review the available products with the ACC, as well as discuss licensing of those products a bit before hopping into a review of those products in the browser. So I'm going to hop off my webcam here and join you again once we get to the Q&A at the end. So, all right. So we should start with the what's new question, with the fact that the Autodesk Construction Cloud itself is new. After acquiring PlanGrid within the last couple of years, Autodesk wanted to develop an offering that took the best technology from both BIM 360 and PlanGrid and then combined them into one platform. The ACC was rolled out in early February of this year, so it's pretty new to all of us. A lot of the new functionality for the ACC platform comes from the result of BIM 360 and PlanGrid being combined in the Autodesk Build product in the ACC, as well as an introduction of a new product called Takeoff, as Jim mentioned. So while last week was more of a discussion of the new interface and repackaging of the products, and even though today is going to be certainly some of that as well, but today the main focus are going to be the new tools that we have with the ACC for the construction industry a bit more than we may have reviewed last week. So for those unfamiliar with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, or for that matter, even what BIM 360 is, let me provide a little bit of background. So prior to the ACC, we have the BIM 360 platform, which has been around since about 2015 or so. That has been the cloud-based solution that allows a project team to work in a collaborative environment from anywhere and at any time. And before that, we even actually had BIM 360 Team, which doesn't have quite the functionality that BIM 360 does, but it is a cloud-based file sharing platform nevertheless. As you might imagine, during the pandemic over the last year or so, the usage of the BIM 360 platform has become more and more prevalent, and that's simply because so many people working remotely. It gave us all access to the information that's typically housed on our physical office servers, which we'd have to log in, access via VPN, or log in using some type of virtual desktop. But now we can access all that information, assuming it's housed in the cloud, in the cloud itself through these Autodesk products. Using this cloud technology, we are really only limited by our internet connection as we run the software locally on our workstations, for example, on the job site or at home, and then we can access everything housed in BIM 360 or the ACC all through an internet browser. I'd say this is probably the most valuable asset that the ACC, or again, BIM 360 provides, that connectivity, which gives everyone on a project team that real-time access to all the information. And again, like I mentioned, from any time and from anywhere. Now, the ACC is essentially providing many of the same tools as we have in BIM 360, but with a new user interface, as I mentioned, and with better access to some of the tools that were once split into separate products in BIM 360. The ACC is actually a collection of modules or products, the same as BIM 360, which all act as a set of tools for specific phases of a project. As you can see in this image, the phases being from design to planning to construction through to construction and operations. Again, today's webinar will be focusing on the pre-construction and construction management phases of this life cycle. There's a lot of ways to use the ACC platform depending on your role and certainly your industry. Just know, we're only going to be scratching the surface here today. My goal is to give you a general overview and to discuss some of the changes from BIM 360 to the ACC platform. Before I jump into a brief overview of the products in the ACC, I want to discuss licensing. Now, how licensing works and the idea of what do I have in my account came up a couple times during last week's webinar. So I wanted to make sure we address in a little more detail how everything is working. To put it quite simply, the name changes we will be reviewing should have already taken place in your Autodesk account, with the exception of BIM 360 Docs. And I'll review why that's the exception here very shortly. Once the ACC was rolled out, again, early February of this year, if you had subscriptions to the BIM 360 products, the names were changed shortly after that ACC rollout occurred. I'll review those name changes on the next slide with you here when we get to it. Ultimately, what all this means is that you have access to both the ACC as well as your existing BIM 360 sites. Now, you don't have to use the ACC if you don't want to, but just know that you have access to both platforms automatically and can use each if you choose to do so. What we're recommending typically is to keep any projects currently housed in BIM 360, keep them in BIM 360. And if you'd like to use the new ACC moving forward, place new projects there. And that's because at this time, there's no migration tools to move projects from BIM 360 to the ACC. We're told by Autodesk that they're coming, but for the time being, we don't know when that might be. So we're recommending anything that is already in BIM 360 just stays there. I'm happy to address more questions on this at the end. I know it's kind of tough to wrap your head around some of this at first look, but I wanted to give a somewhat succinct explanation at the beginning. So now let's talk about how we assign these products. So like I said, talk about licensing a little bit more. So previously in BIM 360, it used to be a mix of bring your own and hub assigned, meaning that some products, specifically the BIM 360 design product, were assigned as a product in your contract manager's Autodesk account, just like your AEC collection for Revit and AutoCAD, for example. And the rest of the products were actually assigned by your BIM 360 hub administrator directly through the website. This meant that if you invited, say, an outside consultant to your project and they needed to run clash detection, you would actually have to provide and assign the BIM 360 coordinate license for them to use on your BIM 360 site. This kind of the differences in the licensing has caused a little bit of confusion over the years, especially with anybody that's using some of these products for the first time. So now with the ACC, all of the licenses of the products that we'll be discussing are bring your own, meaning that all products are assigned by your Autodesk account contract manager, and when you're invited to any project on any site, you would use your own license. And then subsequently, when you invite one of your consultants to a project, they're bringing their own license to the ACC instead of you potentially having to assign a seat of your own through to them through your hub. Again, like we currently do in BIM 360 now. The ACC products are individually purchased products, much like your AEC collection, or even standalone subscriptions of Revit or AutoCAD or Civil 3D. And again, they can be assigned like your AEC collection or standalone products in your Autodesk account, as I just mentioned. The one exception to all this being the Autodesk Docs product, which is the file repository in the cloud. It's the backbone of the Autodesk Construction Cloud because it supports all of the products that we're going to be discussing by housing those files. So whereas BIM 360 Docs was a standalone product with BIM 360, Autodesk Docs now comes bundled with your AEC collection. Those of you who have an AEC collection may or may not have noticed that you now have access to the Autodesk Docs through your Autodesk account, but it should be there as of the early February rollout when the ACC was released. Autodesk is basically providing the Autodesk Docs product free with your AEC collections moving forward. And of course, if you don't have an AEC collection, and like BIM 360 before it, access to Autodesk Docs will come bundled with the purchase of any of the other products that we'll be discussing because it houses those files used. Those products need BIM or Autodesk Docs in order to function properly. And then one final note on BIM 360 Docs. I promised I'd come back to why the name is changing in your Autodesk account, isn't changing. And that's because BIM 360 Docs can still be renewed as a standalone product. So since Autodesk Docs on the ACC now comes bundled with your AEC collection, any users who do not have an AEC collection but wish to actually maintain their access to BIM 360 Docs, they obviously need to be able to renew a separate product. So that's why BIM 360 Docs and Autodesk Docs are essentially two separate products at this time. Okay. So now I'd like to give you a brief overview of the main products available in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Then we'll hop out of these prepared slides and I'll focus on a live demo in the browser of the products that focus on the pre-construction and construction phases of a project. All right, so I've mentioned a couple times now, Autodesk Docs is the core component or the foundation of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Autodesk Docs is the document management product. It's comparable to BIM 360 Docs for the BIM 360 platform, as it supports the entire ACC. Think of it as a file server in the cloud, but with additional functionality, some of which I covered last week. And as I've mentioned, it houses all the project information used by each of these other products that we'll be reviewing. Here you can see some of the core capabilities that it provides, including document version control, publishing features from the software that you're using part of the AC collection, both 2D and 3D viewing and comparison tools, the use of issues and markup tools to convey changes that may need to take place, and then the ability to set different permission levels for the folders or files. We also have dashboards and reports, and of course, administrative functions to add users and manage their roles. Now, I mentioned this a couple times now, but wanted to reiterate as we talk about the products. We have broken the discussion of the ACC up into two webinars. One last week, like I mentioned, was focused on design, and today's is focused on construction. So our main focus today is going to be on Autodesk Docs plus these two products that will fall under this quote-unquote pre-construction and construction heading I have here. So the first product here is Autodesk Takeoff. This is actually a new product that's being offered now with the rollout of the ACC. This product mainly focuses on estimators. It has some fairly robust quantification tools that can take your models and your files, basically break them down into manageable parts or groups, as I'll show you later, in order to do detailed quantity takeoffs that can then be exported into other cost estimating software. And again, a little bit more on that later. The second product that falls under this category is Autodesk Build. And this product is comparable to BIM 360 Build plus BIM 360 Cost Management plus PlanGrid. So with the new ACC platform, you actually get what were once three products all bundled into one product in the ACC. And as we'll cover in more detail here in a bit as we walk through the browser, Autodesk Build provides tools for RFI and submittal management, checklist creation, and templates for use in the field for things like daily logs or reports, as well as safety inspections. We have tools for budgeting and cost control through items like contracts and change orders. And one of the big additions is the use of the PlanGrid mobile app that many in the construction industry are familiar with through the use of PlanGrid. And just so you get a full picture of what the ACC offers, I wanted to give a brief overview of the two products that we discussed last week, which are focused on the design phase. So the first one of those being Autodesk BIM Collaborate. And this product is comparable to BIM 360 Coordinate. This is the product that provides collaboration tools for reviewing clash detection, similar to the clash detection tools in Navisworks. This product can be used by those users who are not working on a model or a file or file coordination for that matter. But so they may not need to be in a Revit model syncing with Central, but they may need to be running clash detection. So this is the product that would be most useful for them. The next product is Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro, or ABC Pro as some people are calling it for short. This product is comparable to BIM 360 Design plus BIM 360 Coordinate. So, like Autodesk Build, users are getting some products that were once previously separated in BIM 360. Now they come bundled in one product within the ACC. ABC Pro gives the design team access to both work sharing and file sharing controls, as well as the ability to run that clash detection to coordinate those very same models and files that other teams may be sharing with you. Okay, so let's take a look at the ACC in the browser itself. So let me pull up my browser here. All right, so this is the user interface for the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Those of you familiar with BIM 360 will see some similarities between the two, and any of you familiar with PlanGrid itself will see other similarities with that product. Again, this user interface is taking those tools and features from BIM 360, but now they're packaged in the user interface that PlanGrid users are familiar with. While it does look different to those of us who may have been using BIM 360, I think you'll find that it's actually organized better than BIM 360 as we walk through it a bit here. All right, so let's start to walk through it a little bit ourselves. Up at the top, you can see that I have a similar project drop-down selector. So right here, any projects that we have on our ACC site or projects that you've been invited to on other sites are all visible at this drop-down. One thing you'll notice as I scroll through here is that I actually have two types of icons to the right of the projects. The blue globe, for example, that you see here, indicates projects on the ACC, while the blue B that I'm showing, that I'm kind of highlighting here, this indicates projects are on BIM 360. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So from the ACC, you can actually access projects in both platforms. So if I were to click on, say, for example, this project here with the blue B, it actually takes me into the BIM 360 platform. So anybody that's used BIM 360 this is going to look very familiar to you once it actually, or if it actually loads. So one thing that I want to note is that while I can access both the ACC projects and BIM 360 projects from the ACC, I can still only access BIM 360 projects from BIM 360 as it's the older platform. So if I click on this drop down here, you'll see as I scroll through, I only see the blue B. Again, I'm in BIM 360. You can see up here, bim360.autodesk.com. So what that means is, I can only access any projects that are housed in BIM 360. The difference being, again, here I can see both the blue B for BIM 360 versus the blue globe for any ACC projects. Also at the top here, top left, we have where I can select the different products that I have access to through a drop-down as well. Now, depending on what products you have access to, this may look a little different for some of you when you're looking at this. I have access for all the products, so you can see what's available here. You can see all the products that I mentioned in the PowerPoint slides. You can see them available as a drop-down here. It's going to depend on what you have subscribed to as to what you may have access to. Okay, so let's take a look at the Autodesk Docs product. Now, I don't want to go into as much detail with Autodesk Docs as I had last week. We should be posting a recording of last week's webinar at some point. So if you're interested in getting a little more detail on Docs, please review that when it's available. I'd like to cover just a little bit here just to set the stage for the rest of the products for those of you who missed last week and those of you who may not be familiar with the platform at all. Like BIM 360 Docs, this is where most of my files are housed. So again, I mentioned that Autodesk Docs is the backbone or the core component of their foundation, whatever term you want to use, for the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. Autodesk Docs supports upwards of 60 plus file types, so pretty much any file type you might need in the design and construction process can be housed here. I'm showing a very basic file structure here for demonstration purposes, but just know that you can customize this file structure to meet your standard, your office standards, your unique needs, or any type of file structure that you may want to use. A lot of companies just kind of replicate what they already have now on their their physical servers in the office. You can pretty much do whatever you want to. A couple things just to note. If I click on open up, wrong folder. If I click on this architectural folder here, for example, just like BIM 360, I have access to version history. If I click on click on this Z over here, the V19, it gives me a list of all of the various versions that have been published to the cloud, so I can see basically an archival system of the models as they've been published to the cloud. From here you can copy. I can download a source file if I needed to. I can even roll back the model if necessary. I always like to mention, just be careful with that, because it's basically, if I said make version 16 current, it's basically a kill switch to version 17 through 19. But it gives us that kind of full control over version history of our models and the like. If I click on the model itself, I'm taken into an online viewer that most of, anybody that's ever used any of Autodesk online viewers, whether it's BIM 360, Autodesk Construction Cloud, A360, this would look familiar to you. So I have navigation tools down here at the bottom, where I can review the model itself right in the browser, whether it's at a desktop or a laptop in the office, or if it's a mobile device in the field, for example. And over here, over here I can click between either 2D sheets that are in the Revit model itself or the 3D model itself, and I can navigate through any of that information that's basically been published to the cloud, essentially. So you see I have my navigation tools. Additionally, I have markup and issues, just like I had in BIM 360. So I have a bunch of markup tools over here, and I have an issue tool over here where I can assign specific markups or issues to specific users, and then they can address them either in Revit, for example, or come directly into BIM 360 and review them and make comments on it. Not much has changed with the functionality of Autodesk Docs from BIM 360 Docs, aside from the interface that we're looking at and of course the name of the product itself. So I'm going to move on to other products here for the sake of time. So now let's take a look at the Autodesk Build product first and foremost. So if I go to my selector here, I can go to Build. We certainly don't have the time to walk through all of the workflows, but what I want to do is give you a brief overview of the tools that are available to us in Build and the key capabilities that they provide. And I'll certainly highlight some of the changes from BIM 360 Build to Autodesk Build. So starting here, basically this is a list of all of our tools. So starting from the top, Sheets are a new addition from the BIM 360 platform, and they come as a direct result of that integration with PlanGrid. You PlanGrid users out there are already familiar with Sheets. For newcomers, Sheets are a very popular tool within PlanGrid for field use. In BIM 360, our contract documents are typically saved as PDFs in the BIM 360 Docs, but now with the integration of PlanGrid, once construction starts, the workflow is to turn those PDFs into these more, as you'll see, the more interactive sheets for field use. And once we move our documents over to Sheets, all of our markups, our issues, anything that basically happens in the contract documents at that point should be published or created within Sheets so that everyone has access to the most recent documents, both in the field and in the office. The PlanGrid app has access to Sheets as well, and that makes for easy use in the field, which is why once we move our documents to Sheets, all work is generated from the Sheets tool rather than PDFs. So if I click, let me just click on Sheets here. So I won't do it here today for the sake of time, but when we extract our PDFs into Sheets, the Autodesk Construction Cloud will automatically pull sheet number, drawing name, discipline information in order to create easy access to that information, and also gives us access to filtering tools. So if we're reviewing these in the field and I only want to see the architectural documents or I only want to see the civil documents, I can use the filter tool that's over here. Similar, we're seeing this on my laptop, but the PlanGrid app will do the same thing. So I can click on this filter tool, and you can actually see that I can filter through. And if I only wanted to see civil, I could click on this, and then I only see all the civil drawings here in Sheets. Let me unclick that. The extraction process will also automatically create hyperlinks in your files so that you can very easily jump back and forth through your sheets and not have to move through them in a more manual process like what we typically have to do with PDFs and BIM 360 Docs. And one of the most useful tools in Sheets, at least in my opinion, is the ability to compare the sheets. So for example, if I select, let me grab the first floor plan here. So I'm going to grab the overall A101 sheet so we can look at it here. And if I zoom in here, you can see once it populates, and okay, you can see here those things that are highlighted in blue. If I were to click on that, that's basically acting as the hyperlink. So when I published these PDFs to the sheet view, it automatically created these hyperlinks. So that's how I can navigate between very different sheets across the document set. But what I was wanting to mention was that I can actually compare two sheets against each other and very quickly see the differences between them. So if I click on the compare tool up here, click on this, now what it'll do is bring me into a little dialog window where it's saying, okay, you're looking at A101, what's the other sheet that you want to look at? So if I select another sheet, I'm just going to select the second floor here, second floor overall plan. And now that I select that, so now I click compare, and you'll see that the two sheets are color coded. And once it fully loads, maybe it's not. Oh, interesting. The beauty of live demo. What should happen here, let's try this again. What should happen here is it's basically going to give us two sheets that are color-coded in red and blue that I can overlay and very easily compare them, or supposedly very easily compare them. Let me try one more time. I don't want to waste anybody's time here, so let me just try this one more time to see if I can show you what I'm actually talking about here. Select the sheet, and let me try the second floor once again. Second floor overall plan, hit select, compare. It does not seem to like that whatsoever. Okay, well, maybe I can come back to that if there's some time later. Sorry, I can't show you that. But basically what should happen here is you can see how these two sheets are, oh, there we go. All right, that took a lot longer than it normally does. But in any event, what you can see here is I've basically overlaid one sheet over top of the other. So I can see in red, I can see my first floor plan, and then in blue, I can see my second floor plan. So I can see kind of how things are aligning between plans. And then I can also see any of the differences, like obviously, we have this vestibule that's kind of sticking out here on the first floor that isn't at the second floor and the like. So there's a very easy way to take your sheets and run comparisons between the two. Okay, so let me close out of this. And the next tab that I wanted to show you. So the Files tab simply shows us all the files that are housed in Autodesk Docs without actually having to toggle the product back to Autodesk Docs. I know this is kind of a simple change, but I think it speaks more to the bigger picture in that the ACC provides some navigation tools that make it easier to navigate through our files and our tools than what we currently have in BIM 360. The Issues tab is available in both Build and Docs. This allows us to generate the issues that I had mentioned when we were looking at the viewer, straight from various documents and sheets. And once we assign the issue to the person, once we select a person and we issue we submit that issue, we'll receive an email, and then they can address the issue in Revit or AutoCAD or Civil 3D, wherever whatever the source file, the source software is. Or they can even address it in the browser if they just need to make comments, and they can close it, they can mark it as for review, so on and so forth. So it's a really good way to track all of the issues in a project, whether it's in the, last week I talked as far as the design phase goes, but now if we're talking pre-construction and construction, issues that are found in the field during construction can be very quickly addressed through the app or through a laptop by assigning an issue and then assigning it to a specific person, so they get an email in real time letting them know, hey, this is a problem, this is not something that we can talk about next week at the next construction meeting or something for that, something of that nature. Beyond that, issues are fairly similar in the ACC as they were with BIM 360. So onto the Forms tab. So the Forms tab gives us access to create forms and templates that can be used in the field with things like daily logs or safety checklists or various other checklists and on and on. I should probably click on that to show you what it looks like. Again, this is very similar to BIM 360. I won't harp on this too much, but here you can see over here I've got my forms. I can click on this tab here to take a look at to look at the templates that I have available. And the way it works is by clicking on one of these templates forms in the PlanGrid app, say we're in the field on an iPad, if I click on one of them, it essentially takes me into a formatted document where I can start to enter my information and then submit that as a form that gets saved here in the Forms tab that can be reviewed both in the field and in the office as necessary. The RFIs and submittals tabs that you see here in Build are pretty much the same as what we have in BIM 360 as well. So if I just kind of draw between the two, I won't get too deep into these either. Just know that we can create and manage our RFIs and our submittals, assigning this information housed in the ACC like any other document. Like we can basically attach any other documents like PDFs, sheets, spec sheets, etc., directly to the RFI or the submittal that we're sending out or that's being created, so that everyone has access to the necessary information very quickly. So rather than having to dig through tons of information folders to find the necessary documentation that is referenced by the RFIs or submittals, we can attach that information directly that's all housed directly in Docs. The Photos tab now provides a tool dedicated to photos, as you probably guessed. We've had access in BIM 360 to taking photos through the BIM 360 app in the field, or taking them with a camera and then uploading them to BIM 360 Docs. But now we can take photos in the field and they will automatically get uploaded under this tool, so that we have one repository for all of the photos. Or we can also upload photos into this folder as well. So you can see here I have a gallery view here of all the photos through the entire construction process of this demo project that was a demonstration project that was provided to us by Autodesk. One really useful addition in the ACC with this tool is that we can see the gallery view that we see here, or we can actually select the map view, as I'll do. And what you can see is we actually see where the photo was taken exactly on the site. All these photos are basically marked with spot tags as to where on the site they were actually taken from. Having taken plenty of site photos only to get back to the office and then try to label them based on the location and trying to remember where exactly I took this from, because I'm taking, pictures of framing and wiring and that's it, and I don't really know. I can't remember if this was the second floor or if this was the fourth floor. This seems to be a very useful time saver to me to be able to kind of basically create hotspots of where those photos were taken from. The rest of the tools that we have over here are very similar to the tools that we have available in BIM 360. So again, I won't spend a lot of time here walking through them today. One thing I do want to mention with the overall user interface here is that where we have to toggle between the project management and the field management modules in BIM 360 to access all of these tools that you see over here on the left, you can see, as I'm pointing out, you can actually see that all of them are accessible simply from this one product, the Build product. Once again, again, I think this makes the navigation a bit easier, certainly in my opinion, in the ACC more so than it is BIM 360. So I think that's kind of a new, improved functionality in the ACC. Okay, so now let's take a look at our last product of the day, Autodesk Takeoff. So, as you'll recall, this product is brand new with the introduction of the ACC, and its main focus is for estimators. Now, I can't walk through the entire workflow due to time, similar to Build, but what I do want to walk through some of the product a little bit to show you some of the capabilities and workflows for using Takeoff so that you can certainly get a taste of it. Many people will tell you that estimating is one of the most important phases of a project. So the Takeoff product is now giving easier access to dissecting and quantifying a Revit design model or AutoCAD or Civil 3D more so than we've had in the past. So with Takeoff, we can actually create takeoffs in 2D, 3D, or both, and then you can then aggregate the results from the Takeoff interface, export that data to Excel, and from there you can import into whatever estimating application you might be using. And then obviously to apply cost data to those takeoffs. So let me show you some of the basics as to how easy it is to start generating quantity takeoffs. There's actually a little front-end work that you have to do in order to get the Takeoff tool to set up. I have done much of this already in the interest of time, but just to quickly give you an overview of the setup, you would first need to click on the Packages tool over here. Then you click on, once it loads, you would click on Settings in the upper right. And from here, we need to select the measurement system and then upload a classification system from an Excel template. I've selected Imperial already for this project for the measurement system, and then I've uploaded a basic classification system based on the uniformat system for our use here today. You can use whatever classification system that you typically use. I just selected uniformat as I'm more familiar with that than I am with others. So now from here, I actually have to use the data that I already have in the ACC. So again, my models, my sheets, so on and so forth. So if I click on the Files tab here, this would take me to the files and the folders we have in Docs, similar to what we saw with Build. And here I would select any PDFs, sheets, 3D models, etc. that I would want to use in the Takeoff. So if I just, let me just navigate to this Bid Packages folder and just select one of these. So as soon as I click on this, you see this button here that populates. It says Publish to Takeoff Sheets and Models. So I would click on that, and then what ACC will do is extract that information to the Sheets and Models tab that we have here, very similar to what the process would be for extracting that information to the Sheets tool in Build. So this basically everything it'll create. Take all that information, the drawing sheet numbers, the drawing sheets, the disciplines, probably the most important one. I'll take everything that I can use and filter through in order to perform takeoffs. Again, I've done all of this already ahead of time, so I won't do it here. So you can see here all the information that I've uploaded for our use. So if I scroll through here, you see all the sheets that are uploaded, and then I think I have 3 models here uploaded as well. Now what I would do is go into the Packages tab and select Create a Package. So if I go to Packages here, in order to actually create a package, you would click on this button here that says Create Package to generate a takeoff space where I can access all of these files that I've now uploaded and have set up. Again, I've done this for us as well. So let's take a look at one of these packages that I have set up, and I can show you what it looks like. So I'm going to select the most recent, this bid package 03 with June of 2017 date. So once this populates, you're going to see a full list of the sheets and the models that I have access to, in which I can create takeoffs. Oh, come on. It was working fine earlier. Of course, now it's going to be a drag for the live demo. What I'm going to do ultimately is use the filter tool, and then I can break these files down by discipline, by whether it's 2D or whether it's 3D, or even based on the version set that they were extracted from. So if I click on this filter tool here, you can see that I can select 2D sheets and 3D sheets. And here's where I can select which set it actually comes from. I'm just going to leave this open for now. And what I'm going to do, since I've already created some takeoffs, I'm actually going to select this here as well. It's going to show me basically the 2 models and the 2 sheets that I have started creating takeoffs from already for us. So if I click on the A101 sheet here first, and then then what I need to do is I can click on, so we're looking at the Sheets and Models view originally. Let me zoom. Come on. There we go. Okay. Now what I can do is if I go into the Takeoffs tab here, so now you can see here, so on this sheet I basically have 2 takeoffs. One, I started some 1-hour fire-rated walls on the first floor, and also some of the tile floor on the first floor here as well. So you can see here are some of the takeoffs for the tile floor. If I zoom in a little bit, here's a takeoff for the 1-hour fire-rated walls that I just started creating takeoffs. So again, I've created some here just for the ability to kind of show you guys and demo this information. But let's say we actually wanted to start a new one. Let's say we had a special type of flooring in the fitness center, and I need to create a takeoff as part of my my estimation process. So the first step is to click on the plus sign for create. Let me zoom over to the actual area that I want to do, the fitness center. So the first step is to create the plus sign here. It says create takeoff type. And from here, I'll enter the name. I'm just going to call this BIM Specialty Flooring. And then I have to select the type of the takeoff, whether it's an area, a linear, count, or BIM. And BIM means basically generated from a 3D model. So in this instance, I'm going to select area. And then what I have to do is I have to select the classification, and that's based off of the information we entered on the front end using that uniformat Excel template that I brought in. So if I click on classification, you'll see here, so under, I'm going to go filter through here, and I'm going to go to interior finishes and floor finishes. And then under output, I'm going to change it to square feet, and then I can simply click on start takeoff. And as soon as I do that, you'll see here that same icon that we saw over here for area is now highlighted here. So let me zoom in a little bit, and this can be a little bit finicky sometimes. So now what I can do is I can start to generate my takeoff in this fitness area for this flooring. So you can see here as I'm starting to, this is going to be a little bit hairy right there, but that's okay. And some reason, let me finish that. For some reason, I got... And I can click on this. For some reason, something got messy there. It didn't take the first time. So now what I can do is I can click on this and say Insert Vertex. And now I can drag you to here. Do that again. Insert Vertex. And then I'll just do that one more time so that this looks like the way that I want it to. Insert one more vertex, and I will drag you up to here. There we go. Now, it's not completely accurate. I can zoom in, I can zoom out and create it. But for all intents and purposes, you can see here, I've basically created a takeoff that's now visible. So my BIM Specialty flooring is giving me roughly 2,099 square feet. So now what I can do is I can click on the inventory button down here that we have here to see the results of all of my takeoffs, for example. Let me just escape out of that. So let me bring this up here. So under the inventory, I can see the information for pretty much all of the different takeoff types that I've created here. So under interiors, under interior finishes, under floor finishes, so we had the tile floor that I had already created, and then we have the BIM Specialty flooring that we just created here together. So if I click on any one of these specific takeoffs, you can see here it starts to break it down. So for the tile floor, so BIM Specialty flooring, here's the errors that I had here. So I can delete them if I need to. So I can come in here and I can just say delete just to clean up my takeoff results here a little bit, because I was rushing there a little bit to do this in the live demo, so my apologies. But I can simply come in here and delete those so that my data is clean. So there's the specialty flooring for that one takeoff. The for example, for the tile floor that I had created before, I actually created several regions for that tile flooring here, so I can see a breakdown of each one of those spaces here. And here you can see I actually have an issue with that one as well, so I can delete that. So what this does is this gives me a pretty good breakdown of all of the information that I've created with takeoffs. So if I were to just click on interior finishes, it actually gives me a breakdown if I go to, say, interior construction, go to partitions, here you can see the fire rated walls that I was talking about as well. So I can see all the fire rated walls that I had generated with the linear tool here for the takeoff. And now what I can do at the end of the day is I can click on export here, which would basically create an Excel file that can be imported into whatever cost estimation software that you're using to apply those costs to the data that we've categorized using these takeoff products in the ACC. So that's kind of a quick down and dirty review of the newest product in the ACC, Takeoff, for use for estimators. So that's basically an overview of what's new with the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Let me get out of this. With that focus on pre-construction and construction management. Again, we're just scratching the surface of these tools. Hopefully this webinar gave you a pretty good overview of the new ACC platform. And now I'll turn it back over to Annalisa for any questions that you might have.
Sounds great. Thanks, Nick. That was quite a big overview of the Autodesk Construction Cloud, at least for the construction workflow. Somebody was asking here actually where or how the other Autodesk Construction Cloud, including the Collaborate Pro, works. And I just wanted to address it that we did not address it this week because we addressed it in last week's presentation. So if you're interested in those, you can view them. We actually recorded last week's webinar and we will have them available hopefully soon. It will be in our tech resources. If you are interested in that particular recording, send us an email to marketing@microsolresources.com and my colleague Miriam will email you that link. Or Jim Stefan. Oh, here you are, Jim. Hi. Thank you. And Nick, one other question is, Rick wants to find out, will PlanGrid continue as a standalone application, or how will it evolve, do you think, from this plethora of software?
Okay, so I get the short answer to the question is yes. PlanGrid, as far as I know, Autodesk intends to continue with PlanGrid, standalone PlanGrid usage. I don't know how long that will occur, but PlanGrid can be accessed both. You can purchase PlanGrid both through the standalone product as well as the Autodesk Build product that we reviewed here today. Again, that could change at a moment's notice, and that's certainly not up to us.
One thing to be added to that is that if you decide to move forward with an Autodesk Build license, and you currently have an existing PlanGrid license, we can actually give you a legacy license that you guys can actually utilize to maintain the project files you have, and any new projects you have will be started on Autodesk Build.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jim. Somebody was asking, where do they actually look at what kind of software they have? Can you give us a quick demo again on, because there was some confusion with what particular products they have, what used to be called, and what it is called now?
So if I go to, so you would want to go to your Autodesk account is what it comes down to. I think I'm going to be logged in as myself, so geez, my browser is just not, there we go. So I'm logged in as myself here, so I'll show you what it looks like under all products and services. I can see what has been assigned to me. You're going to see quite a bit of applications and software as we go through here, but basically the way it works, the way it looks is, so here you can see BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate Pro. So again, BIM Collaborate is basically, or for all intents and purposes, was BIM 360 Coordinate. It's the clash detection product. BIM Collaborate Pro is or was BIM 360 Design. So that's the collaboration product that allows us to open up, say, a Revit model in Revit, have multiple people working on the same model at the same time, sync with Central, that work sharing environment. BIM 360 Design is what allows us to do that, has that collaboration component. So BIM Collaborate Pro now bundles both BIM 360 Design and BIM 360 Coordinate. So I have the work sharing component, and then I also have the clash detection component. And then down here you can see what was once called BIM 360 Build is now called Build. I'm not really sure why it's not called Autodesk Build, but it's tagged as Build Unlimited here in my account. So this gives me access to what was once BIM 360 Design, plus the cost management add-on, plus the PlanGrid tools and PlanGrid app, as we saw in the demo. So that's more or less what you would see here. If I go to, and I'm not going to see AEC collection. I don't have an AEC. I have all of the software assigned individually, so I can't show you what the AEC collection looks like. But under the AEC collection, one of the assets would be Autodesk Docs now, as of early February.
Okay, thanks. And then I'll send a link as well, because there was a lot of confusion about Autodesk Docs. It used to be an individual product. Now it's part of the AEC collection. We're actually planning on sending a webinar about that, because a lot of people are asking what features and functionalities it has. So tune in when we actually do a webinar for that, so you can use it as well. Jim, is there another question on the floor?
There are about two. One of them is, if we add client subcontractors to BIM 360 Build so they can punch list the building, would they need to buy their own licenses, or can they access through our hub? Yeah,
great question.
Okay, so that is part of the initial kind of discussion that I presented earlier. So if we're talking BIM 360 Build, and I'm not sure if the user was confusing them, but I'll talk about both. So BIM 360 Build is the older platform. So if you wanted to invite a client to do punch listing and use BIM 360 Build, you would have to basically assign them a seat of BIM 360 Build from your Autodesk account, because you've invited them to your site. So what you would do is you'd have purchased, let's say 5 people in your team are using BIM 360 Build internal to your office, and there's 2 consultants you've invited. You will want to have 7 seats of BIM 360 Build purchased, and then assign those seats through the BIM 360 platform. Basically invite them to the project and then assign them access to that platform. Now, with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, BIM 360 Build is now Autodesk Build for all intents and purposes as far as this discussion goes. What you would do, as you can see here, so rather than assigning the assigning the application through the BIM 360 platform, you actually assigned access here in your Autodesk account. And it's bring your own, which basically means, ultimately, to answer that question, is you can assign them a seat from your own account if you have seats available, or they can bring their own seat of Autodesk Build to the table once you've invited them to the project. So that's the kind of the difference between the two licensing systems. It's a little confusing, but the good thing is with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, if you're only using Autodesk Construction Cloud, they've simplified the licensing process to assign everything from your Autodesk account.
Okay, thank you. And if you have any questions about whether or not you can share that with those that are in your project ecosystem, then let us know, or let Jim know, and he can walk you through who has that license, and if you need an additional license for those partners too.
And let us know what other questions you have too. I mean, it took. I mean, this is. I don't say this lightly. This is confusing. So if you're feeling confused out there, don't be worried, because once when it was rolled out, it took us a good month to get everything under our belts too, as to how all of this was going to function properly. So it's not just you.
I understand, Chitlin. Jim, is there another question? I think.
There's one last question, which I think is a follow-up to the question that was asked initially. Hold on, I'm going to open it up here. The follow-up question is, one second. Okay. Sorry, the machine is running a little bit slower.
It's actually not you guys. It's me as well. I think something's up with the GoToWebinar right now. Okay. Yeah, it's just dragging everything down. So yeah. I'm glad the presentation worked for you well, Nick, considering.
Only a couple little hiccups there, but yeah, it's definitely a drag there.
Yeah. So Chitwan meant that he meant Autodesk Build in the question that he asked initially, and the follow-up is, what is the mobile app that can be used for Build? Will it be PlanGrid or something ACC?
For Autodesk Build, you would use what's basically called the PlanGrid app. It's the app that is used with PlanGrid, and so it's the app that was brought over with the purchase of PlanGrid from Autodesk and has been incorporated into the ACC for mobile use. I can't show my app itself on the iPad, unfortunately, in this presentation, but I did take a couple quick screenshots in the event that the question came up. So here are basically some screenshots of my app itself. So this is what the mobile app looks like on the home page. So you can see here, it kind of gives us a breakdown of any overdue issues, any assigned forms that have been assigned to me, my favorite sheets, basically my most recent sheets, any recently viewed files. And then let me see if I can. So then you can see across the bottom here are the same tools that we saw in the ACC in the browser. So just to show you what they look like, this is what the Sheets tab looks like in the mobile browser. So very similar to what we saw that I showed you in my browser. Here is what the files looks like. So we only have access for the field. So that's why I always, I don't know if I actually mentioned it here, but I always mention any files that you need to access in the field are only going to that you want to have in that specific folder for the field, as opposed to the other file is project files. So that can be your model, so on and so forth, that you don't need to access in the field. Anything to access in the field you want in this folder. This is what the forms field looks like. So again, I have my templates up here. I click on one of these and I start generating a report. I save it, and then my reports or my checklists are saved directly in there and accessible through both the app that we're seeing here, as well as a desktop or a laptop in the office. Here's the Issues tab. So again, looks very similar. Here's the Members tab, which we didn't look at, but here's where you can see everybody that's been invited to the project itself. And then under the More tab down here, you can see here I have access to my RFIs, my submittals, the photos, meetings, and then assets as well. So it all looks very similar in the app. So I took these screenshots from my iPad, so you can use it from an iPhone or an Android device or anything like that, but it looks very similar. Autodesk has taken time to make the browser look very similar to what it looks like, the interface looks like in the app.
Thanks for sharing us those screenshots, and we actually tried to show this to you live, guys, but we weren't able to do that, but we're glad Nick got those screenshots to show you. Sorry.
There's one last question, but go ahead.
Yeah.
There's another question that Jerome Riss asked.
Yes.
And it pertains to the build workflow, and he's wondering where is the appropriate place to create and view the merged trade model, which has design plus trade models used during clash detection.
So that was some of what we covered last week a little bit, but just to answer the question quickly. So under the model coordination tab here, so again, this is either part of BIM Collaborate or it's part of BIM Collaborate Pro. So if I click on model coordination, it's going to take me into a window here that hopefully the drag on the system isn't too bad. But here is a list of all of the models that I have available to me that are basically all the models that are saved in Autodesk Docs. So if I were to click on, say, the structural model and the architectural model here and click on View, it should bring up a coordination space here relatively quickly where I can see a view that looks very, if anybody's used Navisworks and used the clash detection tool in Navisworks, it's going to look somewhat familiar to you. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. But basically, if this doesn't load while we have the time, there we go. So now what I can do is I have basically the two models loaded in. If I click on this tool right here for clashes, now what I can do in the based on the viewer is, let me see if I can find something that actually, like, click on any one of these clashes, and there you go. You can see that the model basically goes into this kind of half tone and then highlights the actual clash that we're talking about there. And from here, I can say this is not an issue, or I can actually create an issue here as well and start to make the team aware of any clashes that I'm finding when I'm comparing two models.